Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so have you ever seen pictures of a place, or maybe you actually visited, and felt this sudden, completely inexplicable sense of homesickness for a culture that wasn't even your own? Well, today we're exploring the really profound emotional reasons why outsiders feel this kind of soul level connection to Japan. We're going to take a guided tour through imagined conversations between historical icons. We're talking artists, innovators, scholars, just to uncover exactly why Japan captured their hearts so completely, and why its quiet wisdom is literally more relevant today than ever before. It really brings up a profound question to kick things off. Think about it. In our modern world of endless notifications, scrolling, and just constant burnout, what if the quiet beauty of Japan is exactly what we need before we completely lose our souls? Like, is Japan's historical reverence for silence, nature, and deep attention actually the ultimate antidote to our modern exhaustion? Let's get right into section 1, the soul of Japan, beauty and silence. In the West, we often treat space like it's just this void that absolutely has to be filled up with objects or noise or just endless activity. But traditional Japan approaches restraint and emptiness completely differently. It doesn't see emptiness as something missing, but actually as the essential space the human soul needs just to breathe. Just listen to this incredible observation from tech visionary Steve Jobs. He said, "Japan gave me reduction. When you remove what is unnecessary, what remains can become almost sacred." It's so brilliant because Jobs realized that Japan's deepest strength wasn't about adding more features or more bells and whistles. It was about this highly disciplined reduction. By stripping away all that excess, whatever is left over, whether that's a simple tea bowl, a stone garden, or even the sleek lines of a smartphone, it gets elevated to a level that feels, well, almost sacred. And building right on that exact thought, the famous German architect Bruno Taut observed something pretty incredible about traditional Japanese architecture. He found real proof that simplicity can actually be far greater than luxury. So when he looked at structures like the Katsura Imperial Villa, he wasn't looking at gaudy gold trim or these massive monuments that just scream for your attention. Instead, he saw perfect proportion. He saw spaces that achieve greatness entirely through perfect balance. They just quietly exist rather than demanding that you admire them. Which leads us directly into this absolutely crucial concept called ma. Ma translates roughly to emptiness, space, or a pause. But here's the thing, it is definitely not wasted space. It is a highly deliberate, really meaningful emptiness. Think about that natural pause you take in a deep conversation, or a quiet, completely unadorned corner in a super busy house. It's often described as a kind of spiritual mercy. Ma basically gives space back to the human spirit. It allows our perception to become delicate again, and it actively protects our hearts from just becoming these mechanical cogs in an overly busy world. But right here is where we kind of need to pause and look at the other side of the coin. What is the actual cost of all this harmony? We really have to pivot our narrative for a second. I mean, we've seen the beautiful aesthetic perfection, but we have to ask about the reality living right behind those aesthetics. What's the hidden emotional toll of maintaining that kind of beautiful, meticulous restraint every single day? And that brings us to section 2, the burden of harmony, the hidden toll. If we peel back the layers of this societal onion, we find a really complex reality. Take a look at this fascinating cultural juxtaposition that the anthropologist Ruth Benedict pointed out. You can contrast Western internal morality, which usually revolves around asking, "What do I believe is right?" against Japanese relational morality, which operates way more heavily on the question, how will my actions affect others? Now, obviously, this relational morality builds a society with just extraordinary social sensitivity, care, and civic trust. But at the same time, it generates this immense, heavy pressure on the individual to constantly monitor their own behavior so they're never, ever a burden to anyone else. The renowned scholar Donald Keene points out the hidden tragedy inside all this deep consideration for others. He observed that a Japanese person may suffer quietly for a very long time, rather than disturb the harmony of a group. There's an undeniable nobility in that kind of self-sacrifice, for sure. But man, there's also a profound sorrow to it. It speaks to this cultural tendency to endure really immense emotional suffering completely in silence, all just to protect the collective peace. So the crucial point we arrive at here is this. It's basically exhaustion disguised as beautiful endurance. This super intense relational dynamic leads to a quiet but very real societal exhaustion. You've got students who are terrified of failure, workers who sacrifice their entire personal lives, and the elderly carrying these unbearable expectations. And they're all carrying these burdens so quietly.
The exact same discipline that creates such stunning aesthetic and social refinement can unfortunately turn into a sort of emotional imprisonment.
Let's move on to Section 3, What Japan is Losing, Fading Texture. Let's look at how this builds into a modern crisis and ask what irreplaceable, deeply human elements of Japanese life are actually being lost right now to the relentless, standardized march of modern efficiency and convenience. Just think about the stark reality of these vanishing elements. The wooden houses with those beautifully worn floors, a childhood intimacy with nature, mud, and rivers. Quiet, historic neighborhoods just getting swallowed whole by generic glass buildings, multi-generational family shops having to close their doors, and time-honored craftsmanship slowly fading away. Visionaries like the writer Alex Kerr and the legendary filmmaker Hayao Miyazaki are really afraid of this rapid disappearance of Japan's texture. It's actively being swallowed up by standardized modernization. And Alex Kerr perfectly captures the really high stakes of this loss. He notes, when places lose texture, people lose emotional connection to where they live. As he so brilliantly points out, this loss isn't just an aesthetic tragedy. It's not just about losing pretty buildings or old streets. It physically and emotionally severs the spiritual connection between people and their environment. When a quiet, unique neighborhood just becomes another parking lot or convenience store, a huge piece of that community's soul simply vanishes with it. Now, consider this pretty stark comparison. Craftsmanship takes patience. It slows people down enough to truly care and pay deep attention to what they're doing. On the flip side, convenience is faster, cheaper, and totally disposable. Steve Jobs actually warned of the seductive danger of choosing pure efficiency over craftsmanship. He realized that when everything we touch becomes disposable, our human attention just disappears. And once attention disappears, culture very quickly becomes shallow. Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, What the World Needs, a Lesson for Humanity. So why does the world desperately need Japanese sensitivity right now? Well, when we map our modern crises directly against traditional Japanese solutions, a super fascinating picture emerges. For our fragmented focus and endless notifications, Japan offers deep attention and presence. For our modern, honestly desperate fear of aging and change, Japan teaches this beautiful, gentle acceptance of impermanence, kind of like the falling of cherry blossoms. And to counter our highly artificial digital environments, Japan reminds us how absolutely necessary it is to coexist with nature's small things. As we look toward this AI-driven future we're heading into, these values provide a direct, structured antidote to the fragmentation of the modern mind. Steve Jobs argued this so powerfully. He said, "The future will belong to societies that preserve human depth while using technology wisely." He knew that in the coming age, massive technological efficiency without any humanity is going to become downright dangerous. And that makes traditional Japanese values like simplicity, restraint, deep care, and focused attention not just some quaint historical quirks, but absolutely vital tools for our future survival. Vincent van Gogh captured this perfectly too. When he was looking at Japanese art, he noted that Japan reminds humanity that beauty belongs inside ordinary life. A cup, a doorway, an evening sky. I just love that. Japan teaches us to find beauty not just in loud, grand successes or extreme luxury, but in the fragile, totally ordinary, fleeting moments of our daily lives. Because honestly, that is exactly where human warmth and the soul actually survive. All of this brings us to a lingering question. Can the human soul survive without the sensitivity Japan teaches? I really want to leave you with this provocative thought to meditate on. As you step back into the noise, the speed, and the endless notifications of our modern world, ask yourself, what fragile, beautiful things are you rushing right past? How can you cultivate just a little bit of that that deliberate pause in your own life today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep paying attention, and I'll catch you next time.